I just want to say one thing very quickly. I don't believe they get away with their lies anymore. They do with Israel's supporters in the United States. There's no question about that. Mike Huckabee, for example, believes this.
Well, Mike Huckabee might be one of the only people still believing Israel's lies, but here's John Mearsheimer on Daniel Davis's podcast talking a little bit about how people are fed up with the false narratives given to us by Israel's criminal government. Why this is changing in the United States right now, it's opening a lot of eyes, and the differences in this between Democrats and Republicans. Let's get his take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
The people who run the ADL or AIPAC, they believe this, these Israeli denials. But the problem that the Israelis face is that the vast majority of people don't believe this.
You mean a vast majority of people around the world, or even in the U.S.?
Even in the U.S., a poll was recently released. This is really quite remarkable. That shows that 67% of Americans who are Democrats, they're in the Democratic Party, 67% believe Israel is committing genocide or something akin to genocide in Gaza.
Well, they're 33% off the truth.
And another 8% believe it's not genocide, but it's effectively mass murder.
Seems synonymous to me either way.
67 plus 8 is 75. That's 75% of Democrats. 3 out of every 4 Democrats believes that Israel is either committing genocide, that's 67%, or genocide plus mass murder, that's 75%. This is really remarkable because this is in a country where the mass media, where the New York Times, especially the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, rarely ever use the word genocide to describe what Israel is doing in Gaza. Yet 75% of American Democrats believe that Israel is committing either genocide or mass murder.
Well, that restores my hope and aspirations for humanity to an extent, but they can't hide the truth. We're in a new age now. All the information isn't just filtered down through MSNBC and Fox News and all the Zionist-controlled media agents. We see these videos coming out of the Gaza Strip, and they're horrifying. They're atrocities, but it is changing people's minds.
And what did that poll say about the Republicans?
Oh, it's almost exactly the opposite. It's really quite amazing. The difference between Republicans and Democrats on this issue.
And one wonders where those Democrats were when Joe Biden was in office doing the same thing that Trump is doing, but that's a separate issue. But that leads me into the last question that I had, though, is that remains possible as long as the government in the United States continues to do what it's done diplomatically and militarily and financially to help the Israelis. But what would happen if some unforeseeable time in the possibly near future we have an economic crisis on our own side here and maybe a severe recession or so where we're not able to provide all of that kind of support to the Israeli side? If they ever lose the blanket support they have from the whatever administration it's in the Oval Office at any time, what would that effect have on the ground in Israel?
2 points, Danny. First of all, it's very important to understand, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, that Israel is extremely dependent on the United States. Israel could not behave the way it does without robust support from the United States.
This is so true. This is why Israel has gotten away with attacking like 4 of their neighbors in addition to consummating this genocide in Gaza since October 7th, attacking Lebanon and Iran and Syria and Yemen, just assassinating the prime minister of Yemen yesterday without the backing of the United States. It allows them to do bellicose things throughout the region that they otherwise wouldn't do. And they're a nuclear power. They're a nuclear weapons power, a secret nuclear weapons program, mind you, created through the Domina project in the 1960s, the one that JFK tried to stop just months before his death. but they've been attacking their neighbors and been behaving in a way that's not conducive. It doesn't benefit the United States in any way, but they would have the defensive capacity to defend themselves. It's just that's not what they do. They attack their neighbors. They destroy innocents in Gaza as they plan to move in after they've assassinated Yemen's prime minister.
Right? When people talk about Israel does this or Israel does that, they should really be saying Israel and the United States, because we are joined at the hip, and they could never execute this super ambitious and super murderous foreign policy without the full support of the United States. So it's just very important to understand this. Second point I would make to you is, even if you had a depression or a severe recession, I believe we would still continue to support Israel. And the reason is the power of the Israel lobby. You just cannot underestimate how powerful it is. It's, again, politically incorrect to say this in the United States.
Yeah, they're just going to call John Mearsheimer an anti-Semite again. They always do this, even when talking about the power and influence of the Israel lobby by someone who's Jewish. John isn't, but say Glenn Greenwald or Dave Smith or Aaron Mate or Max Blumenthal or Norm Finkelstein, the son of Holocaust survivors. If they criticize Israel, they'll be an anti-Semite or talk about the influence of the Israel lobby. But that's exactly right. We are tied at the hip to Israel, and it's because of the power of AIPAC, who lays claim to something like 361 congressmen, like proudly so, on their website. They highlight how much power they have over the voting patterns of these people in the United States voting on behalf of a foreign government. This is true. It's going to remain true, but the influence of the pro-Israeli forces in the United States is waning. We are seeing younger people not have the same mentality toward Israel. So I don't think any kind of tangible loss of support toward Israel happens in the near term, maybe in the future.
To talk about the power of the lobby is sure to get you into trouble, as I can attest to. But the fact is, the lobby is incredibly powerful.
So if let's just say that the as is probably pretty likely that the Democrats retake control of the House in 2026, what do you think is going to happen to that 75% Democratic opinions then?
Well, I think it's extremely unlikely that the Democratic leadership would crack down in a meaningful way on Israel.
Exactly right. We're seeing no meaningful crackdown when they're the minority party. When you have AOC voting for $500 million extra dollars to Israel that Marjorie Taylor Greene tries to make an amendment to stop. And AOC is making excuses for this. You do have some good Democrats on the left, like Ro Khanna, that's very good on Israel, but they are few and far between, and very few of them are willing to call it a genocide. Marjorie Taylor Greene is actually the first congresswoman, or congressmen for that matter, willing to call it a genocide. So he's right. If the Democrats take power, the support for Israel will carry on. It's going to have to take a real shift away from the Israel lobby if this is to happen at some point. I don't think it's going to happen in 2026, regardless of whether the Democrats win or not.
One could argue that, in 10, 15, 20 years, the situation will change. I don't know.
I think it will in 10 to 12 years. You're seeing the highest support for Israel among older people, among baby boomers. That's not to generalize. There are exceptions. I know they watch this show, but that is true in terms of generalities. It's younger people that don't support Israel to near the degree that older people do.
But that situation is not going to change anytime soon. In fact, what's happening here is that this issue is causing the Democratic Party huge problems. I mean, you have this complete disconnect between the leadership and the rank and file. The rank and file, 75% of the rank and file believe that Israel is committing either genocide or mass murder. And by the way, if you look at that poll, this includes Republicans and Democrats. 1/3 of the American people think that what Israel is doing is not serving America's interests. Just think about that. 1/3 of the American people believe that what Israel is doing is not serving the U.S. national interest.
Well, one of those 2/3 thing, what benefit are we getting from Israel? But he's exactly right. This is, creating a problem, so to speak, in the Democratic Party. But both political parties just discard the good parts of their platform. In this regard, Trump administration has done that in terms of Ukraine. There's a disconnect between the leadership and the rank and file that want to disengage from Ukraine tomorrow. But not to worry, the military-industrial complex is still there to benefit, so once you're in power, you keep this thing going. The same dynamic is true in terms of Israel and the Democratic Party.
This, of course, raises the question, then why are we doing this? And the answer is very simple. It's because of the power of the lobby.
Yeah.
American policymakers live in fear that if they do anything that's seen as anti-Israel, they'll be smeared in public and they'll be defeated at the polls.
Yeah, I think that's a sure thing, but it doesn't mean that Israel's going to lose the support of the U.S., and it is the power of the lobby. John Mearsheimer wrote the best book on this with Stephen Walt in, I think, 2007. It's called The Israel Lobby. I couldn't recommend it more. That is a fantastic book that gets into the whole history of the Israel lobby, how it formed, and the power and influence that it has in the United States. I think that book is still relevant to read, and certainly in these times. So I basically totally agree with Mearsheimer here. We're not going to see a reversal in terms of pro-Israel policy on the American side, even in 2026, and even if the Democrats win. And all the proof is in the pudding of 2024 in the presidential election, too. The Democrats had the opportunity to stake out an alternative case to the pro-Zionist right-wing Trump supporters, and Trump boasts about how closely aligned he is with Israel and with Netanyahu, even as Netanyahu is a war criminal, a fraudster, and a corrupt, monster. Trump still boasts about how close he is. Kamala Harris did not carve out a different position on this. They campaigned in the same way toward Israel. She wasn't willing to call this mass murder. She wasn't willing to call Israel out in any tangible sense because the Democratic establishment supports Israel also. Thankfully, there are good left-wing dissidents that are great on this issue, just as there are right-wing dissidents that are great on this issue. I think they're becoming more and more prevalent. They're having their voices amplified more and more by the new media, and that will continue in 10, 20 years, certainly so. That is the trajectory. That's the trend. That's a good trend. That's what gives me more hope than anything. But I do want to hear from you. Let me know down below. Is John Mearsheimer right? Is the public still swallowing Israel's lies? Is it becoming less and less common? Are you seeing, friends, neighbors, relatives wake up to Israel's atrocities? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Daniel Davis too. He has a great podcast. I love this interview he had with Mearsheimer, who's brilliant also. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can help support the channel, and in return, I'll give you access to all of my members-only videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.